dan is het meestal wel wat beter.
Ja, dat denk ik ook inderdaad.
Ja. Ja, leuk. Ja, ga je hier ook...
Ja, ik heb vanuit nog zo.
Yeah, I always keep it better when I do the briefing, but it's just always I get stressed, you know.
Ja, ja.
Where you're like reading. That's stressful.
Ja, dat is twee met Lisa en met...
Yeah, they also
Ja. Nee,
yeah, but I always get
ja, zijn die?
like I was a bit nervous, stressed, so I don't know.
Maar het is ook heel leuk als je nog steeds een bal betaalt. En waarom ook eens zo ver? Dat was
Nee, dat is heel lang geleden.
ik wil niet de Afrikadag uit. Nee, maar dat is
ja,
dat was echt geloof ik voor eens. Ja, deze is.
Nee, die is er niet.
Ja, als ze meenachten heb ik het wel een beetje maar next level.
Maar hopelijk het is nu al gewoon prima dag. Gaat goed. Maar goed, ik hoop dat het nog geen gekke tijden.
Nee.
Want die daarvoor sessie was die heerlijk druk.
Ja, beneden bij de
ja? Ja, dat is wel. Ja, ik denk dat iedereen van daar ook. Ja. Ja, ik denk dat het wel een beetje. Ja, het is wel zeker. Yes.
ja, het is ook nog wel bij.
Dat is wel waar, ja. Het briefje in de licht houden, alleen luisteren
alleen
ja, als ik wat
de vierde stick, de derde
Oh yeah, yeah.
dus de zout zit echt
ja.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, yeah.
Dit is niet de ijszaal. Nee, de ijszaal is hiernaast. Ja. Mag ook hier komen zitten hoor, dat is ook leuk. Is goed. Ja. Ja. Good to see you. Hoe is het?
Specifiek met de trein. Ik hoorde dat het echt crazy was. Oh, maar ook ben je net aangekomen? Oh, nee. Just in time. Ja, is goed.
Dat means double.
I also have the clock there, which is great. I think you guys can come, huh? You guys can sit. Are these working already?
I think it is.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. 1 minute, or should we start? Okay. Hello, everybody. Good morning. I'm Yasmin Rugarli, and I just wanted to say we actually have 3 speakers to this panel. So someone is gonna probably come at a point in the room. It's the other speaker. So yeah, good morning. Thank you so much. I'm very honored to be moderating this panel on the topic of youth climate action, especially in this digital area in North Africa. Moderating this conversation for me is meaningful also at a personal level because I am myself half North African, specifically from Algeria. And I always grew with this silent inheritance and also, I would say, inner knowledge that when voices come together, change can happen. And North Africa is a region in the world that has a very paradoxical energy, fire, but also tenderness, I would say, tradition and reinvention, as well as patience and rebellion. And it's a region that has suffered colonialism. It's a region that has been witnessing political fragmentation, as well as social and economic pressures, and as we're going to talk about today with our panelists, environmental stress. But nevertheless, the same country and the same regions are keep producing resilience and hope seed after seed. When we talk about climate action in Africa, we often focus on sub-Saharan Africa. And what we are noticing is that North Africa is oftentimes a bit at the margin of the narrative. But the generation that is part of this region, the young generation specifically, is not just witnessing externally the effects of the climate crisis. They are carrying the pressure of a future that is as well shaped by water scarcity, more and more desertification, as well as higher flows of migration outside of the continent, unfortunately, and job insecurity. But this same generation is also here, and it's creating day by day, seed by seed, future paths and powerful paths of resilience. What we're also seeing is that across the region, we are witnessing a real digital awakening. And this is very particular because young people are using digital innovation to further global mobilization. And this shift is truly reframing narratives around climate change, and it's also holding power accountables in a way that it has never done before. So this is precisely why this conversation is really vital today. And what I would like to also mention is the fact that young people in North Africa, as in many other beautiful regions of the world, are not just passive victims of climate change, but they are storytellers, they are innovators, and they are activists. And so I'm really grateful to explore these topics with you panelists. And the three panelists that we have actually today is Fenna Timsi here. We also have Jan Hemserk, and then we have another speaker that is Malak Dendahan, and she will join us very soon. So hopefully we can engage in a meaningful conversation also with her. In terms of structure, what to expect, we are going to start with just a brief presentation of our speakers. After that, we are going to enter into the core of the conversation, and I would like to have at least 10 minutes of Q&A to wrap up this session. Thank you so much for joining this panel. I know there are many other interesting ones, so I'm very honored, and I hope that this conversation is going to bring new reflection, also incentivize courage, and perhaps harvest some kind of collaboration later on. So, going to the speakers, which are the stars of the panel. We have Fenna. Fenna, your role in the last year has been mainly characterized by you being a youth representative on human rights and security, so from 2022 to 2025. You've been advocating on human rights, gender equality, youth participation, but you have a background that is actually on applied physics from TU Delft. But you've always been very interested in intergenerational also solidarity. Your role also spans across you leading campaigns for gender-based violence, and you've been leading also many legal reforms in the Netherlands, or at least helping for that momentum. And you mentor girls at the Girls Gearing Up Leadership Program for young girls. So that's super great. Congratulations for that. I would also like to introduce Malak, even though she's not yet here. Hopefully she's coming soon. She's a communication professional from Morocco, and she has a very strong background in digital strategy as well as youth engagement. Right now, her role is mainly her working for l'Organisation Marocaine des Femmes Vertes, which stands in English for Moroccan Organization of Green Women. And she has a degree in economics from Morocco, but now she's also furthering her studies in digital, actually international marketing in Paris. And then Janne, you are a sustainability consultant, so that's really great, and you work for Overview Effect. And you help mainly organizations to build impactful climate strategy within their own blueprints. And additionally, you are serving as a participant of the Female Climate Academy, which is a program that has been done by Climate Aid Netherlands for girls from 18 to 30 years old. And yes, this academy focuses on engaging young people in the climate justice movement, but through a feminist and intersectional perspective. So that's really, really amazing. So thank you so much for being here. Let's get started with the core of the conversation. So I'd just like to start with a very basic premise and just a small introduction about the core of the topic. And as I was saying before in the introduction, we are seeing that the North African region a lot of times is a bit at the margin of the narrative in climate action in Africa. But I would like to understand a bit more, how do you think young people are using now digital media to make climate change more visible at a global state? So maybe you, Fenna, you want to give a perspective that is more North African. I knew, Janne, you would like to just talk about it also in light of your experience in the Netherlands. Yeah.
Sure, yeah. Yes, well, I think it is a very interesting question because it essentially is about how do we reimagine new spaces and how do we reimagine a new world. So I'm always very inspired also by a lot of my family members, a lot of my friends. So my family is from Algeria, from Kabylie, and I'm always very inspired also by, for example, the Hirak movement in 2019. And I think what you saw there was that it was a moment where civil society and activism was reimagined. So instead of, just going to the street, we saw people being very organized in stadiums. We saw them on social media through a lot of digital ways.
Yeah.
And what you also saw there was, I always look at it from like an extractivist lens, right? So that's where what a lot of people were asking for. Algeria is not for sale. It was also during the anti-fracking movement, which preluded it. And I think this also, in terms of, you see a lot of activism also around the hydrocarbon, right, in Algeria, and how that is having detrimental effects on local communities. So I think what happened in 2019 and also preluding that in 2015 was that the digital space became a space for environmental activism, like also through this lens of extractivism and not just only on socio-economic themes. Well, you can, of course, say a lot about what that division means, and it's also a political division, I think. But I think this is something that, changed a lot in terms of what is the role of civil society, what is the role of activism, and how do we imagine this new world. So that's about, I think, creating new spaces. But what you also see, on the other hand, I think, is that a lot of these strategies, they have a lot of backlash as well. So it is very, how do you say it? It's very complicated also to organize when you are trying to organize on a platform that is also giving a lot of fuel to hate, giving a lot of fuel to actually push out these marginalized stories. But some things that we will dive into that later, of course, as well. But something that I did see was a lot of, also see it still a lot. Also, when you look at, the indigenous movement, how storytelling is used a lot. So instead of portraying, I don't know, melting glaciers that maybe we have seen in some more Western-centric advocacy campaigns, you see also a lot of what does it mean for people, what happens in rural areas, what happens when you see that your whole area is being desertificated, what do you see when you cannot grow your own crops anymore. And what is this? Oh yeah, so that means I have to stop talking.
No, I would just love to enter more, because I actually have a whole question about it, and I really want to have this input, so we can,
yes, of course,
we can do it later on. So what about you? What are you seeing in the Netherlands, and maybe more specifically, do you see that there is any kind of narrative also in the digital strategy or formats that particularly work or stir things up? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I think there's, I really see three trends. I think the first thing is that a lot of actions start offline as well. They sometimes start online, sometimes start offline, but you say a hybrid version. So they try to empower each other. So every offline protest or action tries to have a bigger reach online. So the reach nowadays is way bigger than 20 years ago. For example, with Extinction Rebellion, they filmed every protest or action or strike on the highway, and therefore it felt as if you were almost there, which made it quite accessible. And this is also something that you see on, for example, TikTok or Instagram. Very complex items are being translated into very accessible information, sometimes even sort of starting off kind of funny, which is quite weird because it's such a serious subject. This is in climate change, but also, different topics. And the last thing, and I think that is the most important trend that I've seen, is the building of community all over the world. So it's possible to reach people within seconds all around the globe. And for example, Fridays for Future, I'm not sure if anyone still knows it, started by Greta Thunberg. She started the student strikes for high schools. And in the end, she reached over 150 countries. And I think more than 4,000 locations had some strikes. So people felt as if they were part of something bigger. That was not only for themselves, not only their own high school, but really combining their powers all over the world, which made it, quite impactful in the end.
That's amazing to see how there is this shift in approach and format as well. So you also mentioned a bit about also the political aspect behind it, and that's a bit the second question I wanted to ask you, is that often the relationship, not just in North Africa, but maybe we see it more accentuated in these regions, but we are seeing it as well in the Netherlands, that the relationship between youth and states, it's quite complex, and also environmental issues, especially in North Africa, they're highly politicized because it intersects, as you mentioned, with land rights, but as well I'm thinking of local corruptions, etc. So I would like to know, how do you think young people in North Africa and in the Netherlands, maybe we can also try to make a parallelism, are facing these problems like censorship or online intimidation and repression from the government?
Yes. So I think what we see a lot in spaces of activism where, your life is on the line, your communities are on the line, is that no matter the constraints, people still try to imagine a new world and a new solution. So I think that is something that in the Netherlands we can learn a lot from, and I think it's something we should always center in our thinking, that it's also about survival of people.
Yep.
So for example, what happened, for example, in 2015 during the anti-fracking movement, okay, I have to structure this. So like when you look at, for example, the Algerian Declaration of Independence, there's like quite small parts, and then there's the economic part, which is extremely long. And this, I think, shapes still the legacy of France and a lot of other countries as well in North Africa, that, for example, when you looked at fracking in 2015, fracking was banned in France in 2011 because it's extremely harmful for the local environment. And then this company, Total, they do it in Algeria. So, this was the moment that Algerians, they protested, like, this cannot happen, like, we will die, like, our nature will die. And because of that, we die,
Yeah.
So you saw in the south, like, a lot of women leading the movement, a lot of people that were unemployed as well, a lot of people that were environmental campaigners, and as well you could also see some diaspora also contributing with resources, which I think also you see a lot. But this was not, like, the Algerian government was not happy with this at all, like, I think also after, like, La Décennie Noire, people are very, like, Algerian government is very scared, to, it's like a machine that shuns down as well critical. Hey, so happy you're here. Trains, it happens. To shut down a lot of critical thinking, and I think this was what happened there as well. However, because of constant political pressure, like really, really good organizing of all these different groups coming together, like women, environmental campaigners, people that wanted jobs, and they saw all their jobs going to this weird structure of France still owning every land. This is, I think, why it worked. They had negotiations with the government, and it was reversed. So this is, I think, essential.
Yeah.
But you need, like, that's our task, I think, like, both here and in North Africa, is like, how do you sustain these movements, right? Like, how do you make sure that your political pressure is there constantly? How do you bring these different groups together? And by that, I'll now give the floor to some other people to answer that.
I would just like to give some context. Hello, Malek. Thank you so much for joining. Okay, we just talked in general about digital tools coming more at the forefront when we are talking about climate action. And now my question was, how is this movement of young people intersecting also with political pressures. And so we talked about censorship, etc. And so Fenna just gave us a bit of input, and I asked a bit to Janne her perspective on the Netherlands.
So I need to give you mine on Morocco, I suppose.
Well, if you want, but I have a lot of questions as well for you, so don't worry.
Thank you for the invitation, first and foremost, and I'm really sorry for the delay. That's my first time taking a train in Europe. And it's definitely not going well for me. So thank you for the understanding, I guess.
Yes.
So that's it. As oh, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. As for the question, what I'm actually gonna say about this, because it's very interesting in the case of Morocco, I noticed this in the last elections. Youth people in Morocco are very engaged in the sense of everything that is related to environment, whether it's climate change or sustainability habits, sustainable habits in consuming and everything, and they try and they do that, and they work with a lot of ONGs. But when it comes to the political side of it, it's just like companies. Now in 2025, a company would go and use all those green slangs and stuff to greenwash people and push them to buy more. Well, the same thing is done in Morocco with political parties. They will take young people and their engagement towards environment, etc. They will use them as a marketing tool. The election will go. They will get young people's vote thanks to that, and there will be no use for the young people that participated with them at all after that. So they are used for the election, and no power is given to them to actually change what they want to change. So the only way they have is the digital tools, is speaking through social media, is having their own. Because on the political side, they need to make a huge effort, and these digital tools, they give them platform to be seen.
Oh, that's actually super interesting, and how this is coming up because there is this politicization, let's say, of youth or misuse of youth activism, and how digital platforms are here to sort of bring more transparency. So that's super interesting input that you gave. Thank you so much, Malek. Janne, do you want to tell us a bit also about your own perspective?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, as you all, I think you all know, this is quite a bit different in the Netherlands. I think in the Netherlands you have a bigger voice. I think youth is also involved in politics. I think we have a trend, like the last elections brought in more young people into the politics. So we do have a voice, but then again, the lobby industry, for example, is quite big. So, for example, again, Extinction Rebellion, they protested on the highway, and this is a good example of something that really made a change, because after that, they did calculate the true fossil fuel subsidies. So I think that is something that really changed. It's not only youth, it's a whole movement, of course. But I feel like it's easier to speak up, and this can be in big actions, this can be in small actions. We have like the right to protest, so it feels kind of safe to explore that ground. So yeah, if I hear you talking about how it's happening in Morocco, the empowerment they are given by a certain position, and they give up their freedom of their actual values and motives. That's I think we have a different kind of
definitely. Also, you have that safe environment to protest.
Yeah.
You have that safe environment to express yourself.
Exactly.
And it gives you power. It gives young people in the Netherlands, and mostly in a lot of countries in Europe, that power. In Morocco, it's not the same. Let's not even talk about environment. Like lately, I don't know if you're hooked on news and stuff, there was a huge manifestations in Morocco, which was called the Gen Z movement.
Yes.
And it was young people, for the first time, very young people, taking matters into their hands and going out on the streets and asking for their rights. And most of them were brutalized. They were jailed. They were too young. It's really, and they weren't aggressive. They were just peacefully asking for their rights. And so they don't have that safe spot. So the last resort they have at the end of the day is to speak either through social media. So they would build platforms to communicate and to spread awareness for the things they care about, or they would go to ONGs because it's safer, because it's good environments, and gladly a lot of ONGs outside of Morocco help a lot of young people in Morocco, and that's the case we have, for example, with the foundation here. Is that they push us and they help us and they give us a bit of platform to speak.
And I'm just curious, what are the platforms that you see being used mostly in Morocco or maybe for you in Algeria? Is there particular platforms like TikTok? Is it popular in North Africa or not so much?
Honestly, I don't know about Algeria, but for Morocco, Instagram is used a lot for these kind of stuffs. I don't see TikTok used in a serious way a lot of times. It's usually just for fun content. But Instagram and Facebook for the longest time were used for ONGs, for young people who have groups to deal with stuff or manage events. So they're gonna go do a cleanup somewhere or workshops in another place. Facebook and Instagram are mostly used for that. And I let her speak for Algeria.
So also one platform that is used a lot is Discord.
Oh, yes.
So for example, an interesting example is after the 2021 fires, like that destroyed, for example, very big part of Kabylie and other region as well. Discord was, for example, also used to mobilize aid. So, for example, also to see, okay, who needs food, who needs shelter, who needs water, like where are more of the fires, because it was so large and it's so dry. So that was also used. But yeah, of course, also some more traditional platforms such as Facebook, Instagram. It is also used, also for example, for workshop and resource sharing. You know, so also for opportunities, because a lot of people are unemployed. So this is something that I do really like, is that then some opportunities are shared. You know,
right,
and also, for example, globally. So also making use of the diaspora, saying, okay, like there's huge group chats and channels where everybody's trying to link each other to opportunities in terms of climate action.
If I can add to this, because I'm wondering, in the Netherlands, I see that a lot of people are uniting into encrypted groups because they feel vulnerable and they don't want to be seen online, because it's still like we have the freedom of speech and we have the freedom to protest, but it can be it can feel unsafe for some people to speak up your mind in terms of jobs or sometimes even police. How does that look like? Because it moves to Telegram, for example, and to stay anonymous.
Actually, for the case of Morocco, Telegram is not very used anyway in the country. Not for personal stuff, not for professional stuff, not for anything. That's why they used Discord, because it was for the Gen Z manifestation. She's very right. They used Discord as well because it was a platform that wasn't very known in Morocco. It was used for gaming and stuff, and most people didn't know. It was something only young people knew.
Yeah.
So they used that platform, and a lot of people. What was crazy is that for the first time they were like, "We don't care about the consequences, and we are going to speak up."
Yeah.
And even that fear didn't exist. Some people, of course, didn't want to speak up. I had people that weren't in Morocco, that are from the diaspora, that were either in France or in Germany, and they refused to speak up. They refused to even support the movement. They were like, no, we still want to go back to Morocco. We want to be welcomed there. We don't want no issues with that. But what was crazy is that these young people, some of them weren't even 18. And they used Discord. That was it made them feel safe, that it's not a very popular group. And the groups were like private, so no one could really access their discussions, and at the heat of the moment they didn't care that the police actually could.
Because they felt like they could not do nothing. Like maybe that's a difference as well, like when I'm protesting for a future, but my future is kind of secure. And I think that's different.
And it was also for basic rights. It was for like hospitals and schools, so it was really the basic.
Okay, but I would just like to wrap up this topic because I have a lot that I would like, so just be conscious of the time. I would like to talk about something that we haven't yet touched upon, which is the intergenerational gap. And so I mentioned before that U4U FNA was something that was very interesting, that at least it was mentioned to me that you are interested in intergenerational solidarity. And what I'm seeing, and I think that it's very present in the Netherlands, and we're seeing it, but in Morocco as well, there is a gap between young people becoming more radical about socio-economic justice as well as climate change, because of course it's the topic of today, and maybe the older generation being more attached to tradition or debates around, once again, maybe religion even. So how do we see this intergenerational gap happening? Maybe we can start from North Africa, and maybe you could make a parallel after with the Netherlands. And do you feel like also the digitalization of the climate movement is perhaps helping to this to bridge this intergenerational gap, or is it somehow creating further discrepancy, or maybe both?
Well, for Morocco, it's kind of ironic. The generational gap is not about only about the fact of speaking up. So when you will have a young person and you will have a more older person, and that young person will say that, like, we want programs from our parties that will talk to us about sustainability, that will talk to us about climate change, and how we're gonna kind of force the industry to respect our future, to think about sustainable development, etc. The older people in Morocco, they don't care about it.
Yeah.
They're like, are you seriously talking about planting trees when we don't have nothing to eat? And that's because there was such a lack in information on the area that people in Morocco, older people, due to the fact that they don't even use digital tool that much, or for that matter, they don't see that these environmental issues are causing the economical issues they're suffering from.
Right.
And for example, there is a pretty simple example. Morocco suffered from hydrical stress for years now, and there is no water, and that water is impacting plantations, which are the main economical source in Morocco. Morocco is a very traditional country who is still gaining all their, the only thing we import is basically tomatoes to French. That's just to make it more easy to understand. So when we have a rain problem and when we have water problem, we have nothing to import and to export, sorry. And we are importing a lot of stuff. So it created a huge gap. Prices are rising up. And so a young person will see that, okay, we have we have a climate change. This causes the problems we have, the fact that we don't have no more rain, the fact that we have crisis of temperature rising up, etc. And that is affecting our economy. And no people is not seeing that.
Yeah.
There is a problem in economy. They don't even care where the problem comes from.
Yeah.
And the fact that all our politicians and deciders are from that generation, it makes it very hard to young people to convince them.
Yeah, there is this nexus that somehow it's not so clear for our older generation.
Exactly,
That's what you're saying.
and that puts the strain, more strain on the conflict between the two generations.
Yeah.
Because there is one issue that is very important to one part, and the other part is just not seeing it. So
Yeah,
it causes
right.
more frustration
Right.
within the young people.
Right.
And some of them would be more aggressive in expressing it. Others will just give up. So that it puts a lot of strain on the matter. And when you asked about digital tools, they try. So there will be more a way to give this information. Gladly, it gives access to the information, so these people can see.
Right.
If influencers that care about green stuff and environment, etc., they try to do contents to explain this stuff in a very easy way, in a very easygoing way, so that people, I mean, you will find it on your feed in TikTok, no matter how old are you. You can be 60, you will still find it. And this helps to, at least for the people that care to understand, that care to listen, a chance to maybe see that difference and maybe alleviate the pressure that there is on the conflict between the two generations.
Yeah. And in the Netherlands, I mean, I also see very much this sort of fragmentation, maybe older generation being more focused on being more, political, conservative in terms of politics. They're looking maybe at migration flows, etc. But they don't see the deep interconnection that there is, for instance, between migration and climate change. So do you feel like this awareness is maybe becoming a bit bigger, or do you see the gap still very present?
I find it hard to say that the whole generation is looking at certain subjects, because I think a part of that generation, I think there's partly other generation here as well that is very aware of the problems that we're facing. But in general, you might be right. I think there's a shift in information that is available and that we're also sharing, so that helps. But in the 60s or 70s, there was, of course, a lot of protesting as well. My parents protested a lot, for example, and they for sure are old. But the big change, I think, is that it's right now you don't have
Young
to.
at heart, always.
The biggest change, I think, is you don't have to take a step outside anymore. You can reach like the whole globe in just moving your fingers. You can sit on the couch and you can start an action. You can provide information. You can find people that share the same thoughts. So that's really helpful. I think that's the biggest shift that I'm seeing if you compare the different generations. Actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, you know, like what I said earlier, like the divide between human rights and socioeconomic rights and the environment is a very political divide, you know, because why are we so, like, why do we view ourselves so apart from nature instead of being one with nature, you know? So, for example, like, in, like, the region where I come from, in Kabylie, you know, like, it is very normal to think of yourself as part of nature.
Right.
And, like, what we also talked about before, you know, about how you see through this commodification of nature, through extraction, this divide became larger and larger. But I do think that we're in a time where this connection is coming back again. But for example, I do also think that in the Netherlands, we're also talking from also some emptiness, because so much of our nature has been destroyed, you know, for profit, for so many things. So I do also think that this is why, you know, we become so separate from nature and view ourselves as, you know, we have this very anthropocentric worldview, you know, where we're, you know, the stars of the earth, let's say. But yeah, I do think, like, I learn a lot also from my Algerian background in terms of, like, how you treat nature with care. And I also saw this a lot in recent waves of activism. Like, for example, what you have seen among young people is that in these huge protests, people were building also a new relationship with space, like also in the big cities, you know, like in Algiers. And what you saw was that people were also cleaning up very carefully after a protest, for example, you know, and, you know, sharing food, sharing, you know, stories, brainstorming together, and really sharing a space. So, yeah, this is something that I think, you know, also through intergenerational solidarity, it's also like, how do we share the space together?
Yeah. Yeah. So what I'm also hearing somehow, just to wrap up this argument, is that, as you said, it's very difficult. You cannot put just into containers generations. It needs to be very much contextualized, and maybe actually older generation are more connected to a more ecocentric also way of approaching nature. You know, because they see nature as part of their own community. You know, it's just very much the fact that now, you know, the more the years are going, the more also I think we are capitalizing more our society, and therefore this gap is more strong. So it's just good input to see that it's not just about generation, it's really about contextualizing it.
Yeah, and the urbanization, I think, in North Africa is both blessing and a curse, you know, in
Exactly.
the sense.
And that's a perfect transition with what I wanted to ask actually, which is another gap that we're seeing is that, I mean, at least for instance, for the protests that we just saw in Morocco, we see that they are very much rooted from urban centers. But the reality is that, of course, cities are highly affected when it comes to water and many other issues that we're seeing, also economical pressures, loss of jobs, etc. But there is this intersectional lens that we need to embody, where we are seeing that people that maybe are coming from more rural areas, they're directly impacted within the security of basically their basic needs. So there is water management issue, there is a food scarcity, agricultural issue, higher intensity of desertification. So I was wondering, is now this movement toward youth activism, this youth activism movement toward bringing more awareness on these climate change issues also intersectional? You know, do you see voices of young people from rural areas being brought also in the digital world?
I'm going to highlight something that is very interesting in the case of Morocco. For some reason, people in rural areas happen in their habits of every day to be way more sustainable and way more caring about environmental matter than people in urban hubs are, even though there is more availability of information. Maybe even though in cities people are more aware of the issue. These people traditionally for years they've been recycling, they've been consuming in a very responsible way. They sew their clothes themselves. The food they eat is the food they make in a very healthy way. And there is basically no food waste in rural areas in Morocco.
Right.
They would eat whatever ends is gonna be recycled in a certain way, given to the birds or to the to chickens,
Animals.
etc. And for some reason, even though these people are the most eco-responsible by themselves, nobody pushed them into it, they are the first one to suffer from the irresponsibility of others.
Yeah, that's exactly looking at
So
it from an
they are the first one to be impacted by hydrical stress, because they basically rely on agriculture. So when there is no water, there is no food for them basically, and there is no money. They are the first to be impacted by climate change as well, and they don't. The problem is that they don't realize where the problem is coming from.
Right, exactly.
Because no matter how much we speak, it doesn't reach them. And gladly in Morocco, I've seen some influencers who's like doing the trip there, showing how these people live. We've had the chance to have European activists visit them, talk to them, like make their voice reach other people in a certain way. But yes, I would agree that they are very they are not at all represented enough. They are not represented enough. We don't talk about their struggle enough, and we don't explain the situation to them enough, and we don't care. We don't take their opinion into matter enough.
Right.
They were the first to suffer from there was an earthquake last year or 2 years ago in Morocco. They were the first to suffer due to climate change. When they lost their homes that were already weakened, they were basically in the streets. It was so hot in these areas in the summer, and yet nobody heard from them for 2 years until the manifestation that happened lately. So yes, I think that I would recommend or advise. I don't have the chance to be in Morocco right now because I'm studying in France, but even with the Moroccan organization of Green Women, who works among women and also young women, we always talked about that to be in our program, to reach to these people, to talk to them as well, to listen to them, and not in a way that we are coming to teach you something at all. No, in a way that we have a lot to learn from you, and we have some things we gotta we need to exchange with you as well. So yes, I think a lot of light should be put on.
Yeah. So not in an extractive way. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Fena, do you have something that you would like to share also as well? Just let's be mindful about time because I would like to open soon the Q&A.
Yes,
So
of course, yeah. So I think also one aspect that's very important in this case is that when you look at the region of North Africa, you also see that, for example, women are 40% less likely to own a smartphone in rural areas. So if we're talking about, mobilizing digital action or even information, you see that this is also very gendered, also what you said, we talk a lot, for example, about north-south divide, and the inequalities that are there and decolonizing it. So this is also something that we have to think about within a country, even within a community, seeing how these inequalities play out. I think also this is something that I've seen a lot is also, for example, in the village where I'm from, it's very difficult for women to how do you say that? To have the independency to make your voice heard in a way that, you know, it will not harm you.
Right.
So
the agency.
yeah, agency, and you know, like what I said before, you know, in the worst cases of people, their lives, they always try to find a way to improve it, you know. So that's also why I think that Algerian women, also in rural areas in Algeria, have led a lot of protests, have led like, even if you look at War of Independence, if you look at the Civil War, women have always been at the forefront in their own way. So I think that is a new way for, like, this is a very obvious challenge, I think, in this generation, is how do we make sure that our digital solutions, that are like also digital rights, they actually center women empowerment.
And I think it's a very strong argument, and maybe we can just take 2 minutes for you also, and you to give us your perspective, because you work for an organization that is focused on women, and you also have a very strong background in let's say feminist and intersectional, let's say, lens, because as you mentioned, indeed, it's not just about north-south, it's not just about rural and urban, it's really about looking who has which type of role. And of course, women are at the forefront also because they have more traditional roles of taking the water, taking care of their garden, etc. So we need to also look that through their lens. And I would love to know a bit more about, you know, what your organization or the organization you're working for is doing, and if it's integrating this perspective. Just let's make it quick, please.
Actually, and the organization started like a few times ago. It's not a very old structure, but we are very proud to say that we did our best to make as much impact as we could this year. And the first thing we focused on, in the sense of helping women and young women specifically in these areas, was to give them a voice, to demystify and debunk the whole scary aura that is around political participation, and to go to these women and tell them, look, okay, it's good, it's really good to speak on social media, it's very, very good to take digital actions, but this shouldn't make us think that it is enough. At some point, for the change to be concrete, you need to go to a higher level of engagement, and you need to go where decisions are made. I'm sorry. So what we did is that we worked on a lot of workshops, 3, and actually today they are having the 4th, if I'm not wrong. Today they are having the 4th workshop, and we went to a lot of regions in Morocco. We picked a lot of regions, and we went to these regions, we met with these women, and we spent a whole day with our coaches, etc. And what we do is that we give them information about how they can participate politically. We tell them what their rights are, and we tell them what, like, we ring the alarm on the environmental issues that exist, and we tell them how are these issues impacting them, so that they know why they need to participate politically. So that's what the organization does. It's, first of all, raise awareness, because women suffer from things they don't know where they come from. So we tell them, look, there is a huge part of your issue that's coming from environmental problems. That's the first thing. Secondly, we tell them, you have the right to participate politically, and you have the right to make the decision. You need to vote. It is your duty to vote.
Right.
So we said it clear on this part. And then we give them the tools to do that. So how to use social media, how to speak in public. It depends on the regions we're in. We talk about leadership. We tell them, okay, these are the tools you can use to advertise for yourself, etc. That's it.
That's great. So having very much of a grassroots approach, that's fundamental, I think. And do you want to give some last inputs in light of your background?
Yeah, of course, for me it's a bit different. The focus of my work in terms of actioning or protesting is mainly focusing on increasing the awareness of the differences between male and females and the effect that climate change is having. And I think we all can make different choices, because part of it is also, for example, the resources we take and the way that production processes are outsourced, and often the effect there, like in terms of wages or safety, is so much worse for women as well. So if you want to do something yourself, please take a note of what you're consuming and where you're buying, because even those small changes in awareness and consumeration can have a big effect in the end. So maybe just a bit of advice there to everyone here.
Yeah,
Thank you so
boycott is
much.
very powerful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I would like to now open the floor for the audience. We have, I would say, 7 minutes, maybe 10, if we are a bit more flexible, to just have a couple of questions. So does anyone? Okay, we have one there in the back. Maybe we can start. We can keep it 3.
Hi, I have a question for Melek. How do you deal with women who are afraid to express the critique, maybe on the government regarding their policy on climate, when they have the fear of being prosecuted?
Okay, that's actually a very good question, because it's also a question that we receive in every single workshop we have. We always have a woman that would raise her hand and say, "Look, what's happening to me?" If I talk about it, and not even to the stand of fearing the government, but even fearing the looks of others. So we tell them that basically they need to talk, and if they are fearing doing it aggressively, they still can do it in passive ways, peaceful ways that are subtle, but that still make a change. Okay, you are afraid to protest or do something that can have huge consequences. Start with voting. We noticed that a lot of women don't vote. The percentage of votes in Morocco is very low, especially for women. So start with voting. Vote for more responsible parties. Start to look into how you consume, what you buy or what you don't buy, what you buy for your kids and what you don't buy for your kids. Start with writing, speak up, comment on social media. Use that tool. It's very powerful. And in Morocco, they need to pay attention to the fact that if they use it correctly, it's going to give them power, because despite the fact that it raises awareness in Morocco, it makes us seen by other countries that are ready to support, and other ONGs that are ready to support. So first of all, we tell them that they are safe, because there is a lot of myths about how government would react. Mostly they don't care. You can speak about environment all you want, as long as there are some taboos you don't speak about. No one is gonna come to you in Morocco. And then we tell them that there are more subtle things to do. Vote, participate politically, look into the parties that get involved in the political life in all ways. That's it.
Thank you so much for that question. We already had 2 other questions, so here, if you can keep it short, so we can also leave the floor to more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Lieke. I have a question for Fenna. Over the last 20 years, we've seen quite an increase in youth engagement in, amongst other things, the UN arena, especially on climate change. I was wondering if you could reflect a little bit on the accessibility of and the tokenism in these youth engagement opportunities, and whether you see any opportunities for improvement.
Yes, lots of improvement that's needed. Yes, so maybe start with the context of COP right now that is happening in Belém. So something that you saw there, I don't know, maybe people didn't see, was you saw, for example, a lot of indigenous people barging into the conference while being systematically excluded, but now even being excluded on their own land, which is, it's outrageous to think about that. And also one other thing that you see there now is that even national delegations are being outnumbered by business and polluters. So that's really bad. That really needs to change. And meanwhile, you see, for example, young people coming there sometimes, for example, I have I speak to a lot of people that went there. For example, one of my friends, Yana, she's a Palestinian refugee now in Lebanon. She has so many visa problems all the time. She doesn't have the passport, she didn't get accommodation. So many young activists, they get there even sometimes without accommodation, sleeping sometimes even in tents, trying to influence the negotiations. And then at the same time, people are giving all their heart, their passion, their time. And at the same time, there's they're outnumbered by business lobbyists. This is really wrong, And so that's one thing. And another thing is that, for example, so when I was doing the UN thing, like I was like an independent representing youth in the government delegation. So like I could speak what I wanted. Let's say like, yeah, it's always a force field and you get into fights with a lot of people. But this is not what happens a lot, you know? So for example, like sometimes young people, they get invited within these spaces and it's like, okay, nice, now follow all government rules. Like, oh, but there's a genocide happening. There's people, you know, being expelled from their lands. Like, you know, so this is also, I think, a force field is where, you know, like we talked a bit about freedom of speech. And I do think that in Netherlands also we have to be very careful. Like you see a lot of criminalization of youth. You see a lot of like closing of civic space, which I think is very important trend to watch and to rebel against. And yeah, we can talk about it later more if you want, maybe just to give a bit space.
We had another question here and one here. Yes, for you. And then if we have time also over here. Thank you.
Okay, first of all, great to see here 4 young active women sitting here. But that was not why I asked the microphone. My question was about energy. If I think of putting climate on the agenda and I think of the energy transition, is that in North Africa, in your experience or your view, giving opportunities for young people, job opportunities, or is it more a risky thing of extractive, Europe-oriented, and at the end, it's perhaps more a risk than an opportunity?
Yeah. Maybe 2 people could answer here. Maybe also you could give a bit of input because...
I'll give this
okay. Okay.
So actually in Morocco, the energy transition did create a lot of jobs because we had the Nord platform in Ouarzazate. I don't know if you know about it, but it is till now the biggest solar energy unit in the world. And because this place in Morocco has a specificity that the sun is there for 20 hours. So they can harness a big amount of energy, and countries all around the world invested in that project, and it did create a lot of jobs. Wind energy also in the region of Essaouira and also in the north of Morocco, in Tangier and Martil, etc., also created jobs for young engineers. But that's due to the fact that young people chose these fields for their studies.
Right.
So when they knew that the field was coming, they cared about it, they studied that, therefore there was some job opportunities created for them. That doesn't solve the job opportunities problem in Morocco, because people that are not finding a job are people that are a bit undergraduated. So for these people there is no job at all till now. Also for Nord or for the wind station, yes, it did create job opportunities, but the high-paying jobs that were offered were taken by internationals. So this company that invested brings their own engineers.
Okay. That's very interesting. We have 2 other questions. Maybe we can take one. I will take one, please. Okay, great.
Thanks a lot, Zakaria from Morocco. So looking at data, if we look, for example, at the climate change performance index, Morocco is really among the top in the class. So it's 5th worldwide, almost equal to the Netherlands, a lot better than Germany, than France. Don't you think that climate is already on the agenda in Morocco?
Actually, climate is in the agenda in Morocco. It is not in the agenda in the sense that they made an effort to put it in the agenda. It is in the agenda because our industry, we can't compare Morocco to Germany or France. That would be a bit unfair to Germany and France in the sense of we don't have as much industrial activity. We don't have nuclear stations. We don't have big like factories producing a lot of stuff. We had factories of cars later on, these late years, but we don't produce as much emissions. Actually, the climate change that Morocco is suffering from is basically climate change that they suffered from neighboring areas. Morocco is not is not an industrial country by standard. Our first sector that is generating money from Morocco is not industry. It is starting to change right now, I would say in the last years, but not enough for us to see the impact of it yet. And maybe we are aware of it and we're gonna avoid the fatalities of the other countries. Maybe we're gonna learn from other experience. But up till like the 2000s, Morocco was still focusing on agriculture and exporting foods and etc. and textile also. So we don't have as much emissions as the other countries to begin with.
And I feel like countries like the Netherlands still have a lot of work to do as well. So even being equal, I think we need more attention and we need bigger steps. So I think we have to continue these inputs and action to create more awareness and in the end, create a world we can actually live in, because we're not there yet.
Yeah.
And also think where the resources are coming from,
Yeah.
you know, like also if you think about like hydrocarbon, what is that doing to local communities? Who's paying for that? Like, for example, it can create jobs, but what in the long term? And where is the money centered, you know? It's not at the bottom, you know, it's always at the top, these big companies that have some rich people just stealing.
Nice. Okay, this panel was super rich. I would just like to end up with a final question, just a couple of words, please, for time's sake. Thank you so much for the input that was given. First of all, it was so rich, as I mentioned, and we tackled, I think, the topic also from a very holistic perspective. So not just looking at the digital aspect, but more digitalization as a tool of other topics. But my question is, if there is one thing from your position you would ask for to a young person in Morocco, in the Netherlands, anywhere, it can be universal, to start to do today to strengthen climate action, what would it be? One thing.
I'll let you go first.
4 words for me. I think global, act local.
Nice. Great. That's really powerful, actually. Yeah.
So do I have to do 4 words as well?
No, I mean, you can explain it in one
Okay,
sentence,
yeah,
a couple.
Okay. So I think it would be to center indigenous voices. I think within climate action, it's extremely important to see who's paying the price. Like, for example, my grandma used to be a healer from nature for the village, and, you know, seeing all that nature being destructed, it takes away people, their spirituality too, you know? And I think that's something that we need in this whole movement.
So focusing more on indigenous knowledge, that's what you're saying, or giving credit to that.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Okay.
Mine would be to start with the man in the mirror. Start with yourself. It all starts from us. It's easy to go on social media and tell people to act this way or act this way. But if every one of us just starts from the way they consume and they act towards this matter, it's going to be a great change. So take it easy. Start with yourself. And militating and being an activist comes later. It's just the step after.
Amazing. Thank you so much all for this panel. Thank you for your presence. I think that we received so much knowledge. I feel personally very refreshed, and I hope we can continue the collaboration and the conversation later. So I would give a big applause to our panelists.
Let's do the moderators.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, we even have
Ah,
oh,
that's so cute.
I even received that.
One for you as well.
Oh, that's so cute. I love tea.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Oh, this is
I
so
received
cute.
since I came to Europe.
Really? Oh my god, that is so bad.
No, I just came in September, so it's okay.
Oh, you
Just really want to-
Oh my god, I think I should connect you with some people that can.
Yeah, I need
Oh,
to.
I feel so bad for you. Oh my god, how
Yeah,
long
are
did
you
it take?
okay from the
I
train?
just can't. Oh, the train was trip from hell.
Oh my god, I'm so sorry to hear.
But I was
that.
better
Because you left from Paris this morning, or
Yeah, I left from Paris this morning. It was at 6 a.m.
Oh.
and they had like 45 minutes delay.
Oh. Yeah,
So
well, you both
it's-
are
and
really
it's my
wonderful. It's your first what?
It was my first train in Europe. Oh, you guys don't take train.
really interesting to hear your perspective.
Yeah, you both were amazing, really.
No, you were amazing. You were amazing.
And I will come back to you later.
You were amazing.
Yeah, love it. Your first time moderating.
Yeah, it's very good. Like, you were perfect.
Friends.
Thank
I
you.
feel safe.
I just really wanted to congratulate all of you. It's been an
you're
amazing yeah.
Thank you, sono italiana.
I love it.
italiana.
Like from which country? From which?
From Milan.
From Milan again.
Where are you from?
Bologna. So
Bene.
Oh.
It's my favorite city in Italy.
I want to visit there for a long time
Yeah, don't
already.
go in Milan.
But no, yeah, like amazing talk. I loved all your energies, and now like
Thank you.
it was really beautiful to see how they blend into each other and complemented each other. So
What's your name?
Francesca.
Oh, I'm Fenna. Nice to meet you.
Francesca,
We
nice
should
to meet you.
connect.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you have something to
Malek.
connect? I don't know. LinkedIn or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like I just like it because then I get reminded of people a lot, you know.
for sure. And it's always easy to like associate names and faces as well.
Yeah. I hope I.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Francesca.
Like this.
Yeah. And then I'm gonna.
Oh. I should not forget to take a picture. Oh yeah. Thank you, Francesca.
Nardi.
Thank you. Yeah, Minag. Yeah.
I loved your nodding. It was so encouraging.
Yes, of course. I
My
fully
internet
enjoyed
is
it.
Oh, that's
Truly.
so kind, honestly.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah.
Okay.
So what do you do?
So I just moved to the Netherlands actually like 3 months ago.
Decolonizing medicine.
Oh, you're very nice.
So now I'm like working at the FU. I'm like a coaching lecturer there and like connecting science and society.
Really? So faculty of social science or not?
Beta science.
Ah,
Beta, like
okay.
faculty. So within the Athena Institute. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Oh yeah. We should have a coffee sometimes. I study at FU now. I do a master's now in international relations. Yeah.
Oh my god, beautiful. I have a master in international relations from the University of Bologna.
Ah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's good.
fantastic team.
Oh, we should have a coffee then when maybe when sometimes during break or something.
100%. Yeah, for sure. And are you based as well here, like, or are you studying in France now?
I'm studying in France. This is my first time in Amsterdam, actually. And
Welcome.
yeah, I was in Morocco for my whole life. I've never left Morocco.
Yeah.
But the first time I left Morocco was to live in Paris.
Oh my god. So intense.
Kenitra. It's close to Rabat.
Oh yeah.
I grew up there, and I came in September. I remember it was the 10th of September. It was horrible because I came with a strike. There was a strike and protests, and French are very tough.
Yeah,
when it comes
they
to
like to protest.
Seriously.
So now I'm doing a double degree at Paris. I already studied sales and marketing in Morocco, and now I'm studying international business marketing at IEC Paris. And I've seen Germany. I went to Berlin first, and now it's Amsterdam. Hopefully, I'll be able to see something
How much
else.
time you stay here now?
I'm going back tomorrow.
Tomorrow already.
Monday.
Yeah.
And I had school yesterday, so I'm really tight on time.
I have family in Paris. Like if you ever need like people there or something, they're very extremely
Thank
kind.
you.
Like
That's so
they
sweet.
very
I have
good
a
food.
sister in
If you
Paris as well.
yeah, that's nice. Yeah.
I have a sister, but now she went to Morocco.
Girl, should we take a picture?
Oh yes. Yeah. So nice to meet you.
I don't
Yeah.
have
Wait, let's do a coffee.
yeah,
I would
let's
love
do
that.
it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So nice to
You should
thank
be on
you,
there.
really.
Yeah, you should be.
No, you're not. No, you're. How should we do it? Where should? Oh, maybe it's nice here. Is it
I
nice?
think that's nice actually.
With our faces?
Yeah, right? That's
Not us being narcissistic.
the topic is on there.